Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
Немецкие захватчики хотят иметь истребительную войну с народом СССР. Что же, если немцы хотят иметь истребительную войну, они ее получат.
May 1945. Hitler's war of annihilation reaches its catastrophic conclusion. Tens of millions are dead, and his empire is reduced to ashes, along with his own corpse. His arch-nemesis, Stalin, now controls half of Europe. But how did we get here? That is the question we're trying to answer with this podcast. This first episode explores the Soviet perspective on the lead up to the Second World War, an often overlooked aspect of the conflict. Now, I just want to say that this podcast was extremely spontaneous, and there may be a few errors throughout, but I'm committed to improving the production quality in the future. Also, I hope you don't mind swearing. There's a lot more than I would like to admit. Nevertheless, please enjoy the Totalitarian Titans. Stalin, because of there's something about the nature of a communist regime that always ends in a dictatorship, right? Because the government needs to take total control of everything that's happening because if you want to distribute everything equally, well, people obviously have equal rights and so on, but people don't have equal abilities.
I've done more work, I deserve more, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and that's just how nature works. Like some people work harder, they make more, some people don't. So in order to keep that flat, where everyone's totally equal, you need tyranny. Someone needs to be constantly in control of that, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a government that controls everything, eventually someone's going to control that government, and hence why control everything, right?
Yeah.
So that's why Stalin was able to do it in a way that no one else ever really could.
Yeah.
Because he was also in a system that allowed him to do
it,
yeah. Gave him justifications to do it.
Yeah.
So by the end of the Great Purge, so that takes place from about 1936 to 1938.
So we're right about when this war's about to start.
So the war's very, very close to starting.
He's technically got a military, but he doesn't really have anyone to run it.
He doesn't really have anyone to run it. And
he doesn't have doctors to save his own people. He doesn't have, mainly... Right?
And the ones that are there are not overly competent. But the way Stalin looks at it is he's like, okay, this war is coming, but now everything's fresh. I've got rid of all the nasty elements, and now I can really have a strong dictatorship.
He can put people in power who he wants to put in power, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and he's got like a new breed coming in. So everyone who's now in those positions of power, so he's killed all these people, new people take power, they're super loyal. So he probably thought he was at an advantage, right? But he knew he wasn't ready for war.
Yeah.
He knew for a goddamn fact.
He needed 10 more years to really solidify.
At least, right?
Yeah.
He needs to build up the planes, the tanks, the army. They obviously need to bring new people in now because all the old people have been fucking killed or sent to the gulags. So he wants to avoid war at any cost.
Yeah.
At any cost, right?
Even though, ironically, he wanted it.
He wanted a war, but he wanted... So...
He just wanted other shit to go down. He's realised now, like we said, this is a world war. Everyone's involved in this. This isn't something he can kind of stand by and watch.
Yeah, but see, Stalin had quite a devious plan.
Yeah.
Right? So, Britain and France are obviously opponents to Hitler, but they're very weak. They're placating him, called appeasement, right? So Britain and France are basically dealing with Germany and not really communicating with Russia about all this. So they weren't... The British and the French should have tried to get Stalin on their side in this, but they sort of viewed Russia as like a bit of like a backwater. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
We'll sort this out. Stalin was very offended by this. Fair enough, and a lot of people were. Hitler wanted to take over this country, Czechoslovakia, and Britain and France. It was going to turn into a war. This was in 1938. They thought it was going to turn into a war, and there's a famous incident where the leader of Britain, Neville Chamberlain, so Hitler wants to take Czechoslovakia, or a big chunk of Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia is obviously like, no. But Hitler's like, I'm going to do it anyways. Britain and France are like, well, fuck, this is going to start a war.
Yeah.
We can't have a war. So Neville Chamberlain flies down to Germany, meets with Hitler, and says, listen, man, like, just take a little bit of Czechoslovakia, right?
Yeah.
Just take a little bit of it, the Sudetenland it's called, and just don't go any further than that. And then they turn around to Czechoslovakia, and he's like, you just let him take it. And Czechoslovakia's like, well, shit, because now they got Britain and France and now Germany telling him, like, just give it up.
Just give up this little bit.
Just give up this little bit.
It's the last of your worries, yeah.
Yeah, and Stalin was not invited to this meeting, nor were any of the they're like, bruh.
Is it because they don't think of him? They're not taking him seriously.
Yeah, they don't think of them as a great power.
Yeah.
Right.
But the Russians did quite a fucking bit.
Oh
in the
yeah.
war, like,
later it would become
on,
quite obvious that they're a fucking great power.
Yeah.
And they didn't take him quite as seriously. So Stalin's like, well, I'm not even going to try getting in alliance with the Brits because they've offended us, they've demeaned us. So he comes up with he starts cooking.
Devious plan.
He starts cooking a devious plan, right? So he's like, wait a second. What if I get into an alliance with Hitler and I let Hitler invade Britain and France?
Yeah.
Right? Because he remembers what happens in World War One. They got bogged down for years. He's like, Germany does that. They get bogged down in a war for years and years and years. That gives me plenty of time to build my stock up. Yeah. They're all his enemy. He's gonna make his enemies fight each other.
Yeah.
Right? Either he'll go and take the scraps of what's left after a war, or socialism will just rise up in those countries like it did in Russia.
Because again, that's his whole plan.
That's his whole plan. So he's like, he's cooks up this plan. Yeah.
So he's gonna meet with Hitler or what?
So he gets his foreign minister, whatever it is, not Ribbentrop, Vyacheslav Molotov, which is, by the way, where the word Molotov cocktail comes from.
Okay.
So another thing. So Ribbentrop, the foreign minister of Germany, and the equivalent in Russia meet, and they make the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, or better known as the Nazi-Soviet Pact, right? Mm-hmm. So Stalin's like, hey, Hitler, listen, like, I know we ain't friends. We're never going to be friends, but how about I let you do what the fuck you want to do, you let me do what I want to do, we'll actually help each other for the time being, and because they knew at a certain point they were going to go to war.
Yeah.
But, so, the treaty...
But this is all happening within a year or so, right?
This all happens within a very pretty short period of time. And so, Poland is in between Germany and the Soviet Union, right? Germany wants to invade Poland, and Britain and France are like, if you invade Poland, we are going to go to war. Because by that point, it's like, you have to fucking go to war eventually. Yeah. You can't just let them keep taking over the fucking continent.
Yeah.
It's a whole other thing. And
the tension is so high at this point. They're like,
tension
this
is so high.
The last thing, it's like, you do this, it's all hell is loose for everyone.
Yeah,
There's
pretty
no
much.
going back. Yeah.
So Stalin's like, all hell will break loose, but it won't be.
They haven't been talking to him like that.
Yeah,
He's not
exactly.
even a
So
part of
he's
this.
like, fuck you guys. Like,
Yeah.
you guys. So
This is kind of working both for him, because not only does he have more time to build himself up, but they're doing what he wanted anyway. They're breaking themselves. They're breaking everything down.
yeah,
anyway.
they're fucking himself
So
up.
it's hitting two birds with one stone.
Or at
so
least
he thought.
that's what he thought would
Yeah.
happen, right? So he's like, hey Hitler, I hear you want to invade Poland. He's like, I wouldn't mind a chunk of Poland either. How about we both invade Poland, right?
That instantly just puts him in the picture for UK. For
Nah, there's no way, mate. They're too scared to fight Germany, let alone Russia at the same time,
yeah, true.
right?
But they just said that they're going to war if that happens.
They'll go to war with Germany
They
if
won't-
that happens.
Yeah, okay.
It's a good point. That's probably something I should look more into.
Yeah.
But there's no way they're going to take on Russia at the same time. There's no fucking way.
Yeah.
And Russia's also like, listen, do you mind if we conquer Finland? Oh, mate, you take Finland? Oh, yeah, we might take Romania while we're at it. And then Hitler's like, all right, well, you let me take France, you let me take Britain, you let me take fucking everything else.
Everything, yeah.
But
his idea is that regardless, not communism, will fall?
Capitalism.
Capitalism will fall. You know, it's inevitable in his head. So it's like, you can take it. It's all going to go to shit anyway at some point.
Exactly
and I'll
right.
grab it. I'll grab it when it's done. Like, yeah.
I'll come
He's
in,
not stressed.
I'll build up my army for 3 years while you're fighting a war, and I'll just come and take the scraps.
Yeah,
right?
he's not stressed. Yeah.
So this shocked the entire world, right? All these communists and stuff hated it, but even like what we were just saying, it does make sense from his perspective. It really does. And even the Nazis were a lot of Nazis were outraged by this, because they fucking hate the Jewish Bolsheviks over there, the Jewish communists. But it was obviously a matter of convenience.
Yeah.
So Hitler invades Poland.
Mm-hmm.
Britain and France finally fucking declare war, and voila, his plan. It's a masterful plan by Stalin. He comes in a couple of weeks later and he takes his chunk of Poland.
Yeah.
And it's not just that. The Soviet Union is sending them supplies, oil, grain, you name it. He's funding the war machine, Germany's war machine. Germany's sending them.
This is what we were talking about ages ago. Who was the one person who's like, we need to
Winston
act now?
Churchill, yeah.
Winston Churchill. Who was he talking to? Stalin? No.
What do you mean?
Saying, we got to take Germany now
He was saying that in Britain years before this point. So by this point, it's already too late.
Because Britain and stuff kept on saying, look, next time war's coming, and then they
kept doing it,
bleeding it on
and they
until
kept letting him take shit.
Yeah, until it was fucked. Yeah.
So and now, obviously, at the point where it's too late now, and so Poland, they attack Poland, and
it breaks out. War started between Germany, France, and Britain. Right. World War II has begun. Right. Now, Stalin is basically not funding, but he's supplying the German war machine because he wants this war. Germany is supplying the Soviet Union with like prototypes of tanks and planes, and it's all ironic because they would later come to, and the oil that the Soviet Union's sending, they would later use to fucking invade them. But that's obviously comes later. So there's this big period of time during World War II called the Phony War. So Germany's invaded Poland, Britain and France. So all the British go to France. They sit on this defensive line. They've built like a really strong defensive line. France has. So obviously France borders Germany. Yeah.
It's called the Maginot Line. So it basically goes down the entire border.
Yeah.
The French and the British sit there waiting for the Germans to attack, but the Germans don't attack for it's like 8 months. So literally nothing fucking happens for like ages, dude. So for ages, because the Germans are like, bro.
We took Poland, that's all we really wanted to do.
We took Poland, but Poland's one thing.
France and Britain that's a whole nother fucking beast.
And also, it's just ironic because all Germany at this point has said is, we want Poland. And then Britain and France are like, well, fuck, if you do that, like, it's going to, all hell's breaking
it's on
loose.
by, yeah.
And then they're like, all right, we take Poland and then let's just go recoup for 8 months. And they just sit there being like, if you come near us, we're ready.
One
like,
more step.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's like, fuck, man, yeah, like.
But it's also worth noting, it was always Hitler's ambition to take over the Soviet Union. Because Hitler believed, so he had his master race, the Aryan race, he believed it needed living space. And where would you find that living space?
Big old Russia.
Big old Russia.
Yeah.
So in Mein Kampf, a book that he wrote like 15 years before
Hitler
this.
wrote.
Yep, he talks about this. He's like, yep, we're going to go in there. We're going to enslave all the Slavs, the Russians, and I'm going to give living space to my people. Stalin read the fucking book, right? So Stalin knew all these
coming.
things.
Yeah, he knew it was coming.
But like I was saying before, he thought that wouldn't have even been a problem because they're going to destroy themselves.
They're going to destroy themselves before that.
So he thought he had a real cunning plan. So the phony war takes place for a long time. So now, here's where things start fucking getting real intense. So it's easier if you have a map, obviously. But you have France, Germany, and then you have Belgium and the Netherlands sort of up here at the top.
Above Germany.
Right? So sort of next to Germany, above France.
Yeah, okay.
So the French and the British, let's call them the Allies, they're expecting the Germans to do what they've always done, which is going around the defensive line and going through the Low Countries, which is what they did in the First World War. And I'm pretty sure that's what they did the war before that. So that's what they're expecting, right? And they're ready for it. They're like, yep, you come and we're going to fuck you up. All the German generals and stuff like that are telling Hitler, look, we fucking tried this.
It's clearly not going to work, yeah.
And so there's one guy, Eric von Manstein, I'm pretty sure it was, said, listen, I've got another plan. All right. There's one part of their defensive wall that's vulnerable, right? Because it's so heavily forested.
Yeah.
And the French army thinks that it's impossible to get an army through there. And he's like, well, what if we just fucking get an army through there, right?
Yeah. And
they came up with new tactics. A lot of people call it Blitzkrieg, which isn't quite right. Bewegungskrieg and Kesselschlacht is the better way to call it. So instead of like a slow-moving army of the infantry, he said, listen.
That's just speed, go through
Speed, go for it. Like, just hit them with like such intensity that they don't even know what the fuck's happened to them. So they basically fake an invasion coming from the top. All the armies go right up there. So as they're up there, they come around them, so they almost outflank them, and they just rush these tanks through. Like, doesn't matter. You're not stopping for fucking nothing. You're just going. They're all high off their heads on meth.
You take whatever.
Keep going.
Whatever's in there, you don't stop that. You don't stop that tank. You just keep going.
But the thing is, it wasn't actually that powerful of an invasion, but the French couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on because they're getting calls that there's tanks here, there's tanks all the way over
around
here,
that side,
everywhere, and they're like, what the fuck's going on?
They don't have that many people to invade from everywhere.
Yeah, and they just don't know what the fuck. Communication broke literally like on the day it happened. It all fell apart. And on the same day that it happened was the same day Winston Churchill came into power in Britain, right, which is really ironic. They punch through and they get all the way to the other end of France. And obviously the tanks.
Didn't they take France over in so quick?
Like so quick. Within 2 weeks it was over.
It was done. Like they'd smoked them out.
Smoked them, right?
But where's Britain and all this? Where's their boys?
So the British army is with the French army, and because like I said, they believe the invasion would come from the north. So they've all gone up north, but the invasion's actually taken place down here.
Yeah.
And now they're punched through. Now they're surrounded. They're trapped.
No. German.
The British, the French, the entire army.
Okay. So
they've all gone up this way. The Germans have come down this way. and obviously Germany's here, so now they're trapped.
Yeah, and now they're blocked in.
Germany's coming up, which is what happens with Dunkirk. So they were all forced to evacuate back to Britain because they got encircled straight away.
Yeah.
So the reason that's important is, well, Stalin was kind of expecting that shit to take 4 years, and it took 2 weeks.
So now he's like, fuck.
Now he's like, damn, that his brilliant plan is suddenly not so brilliant.
Yeah,
anymore,
because
right?
it's over so quick. Yeah,
And
but I don't even think the Germans would have thought it would be that quick.
no, not a chance.
They're just like, what the fuck?
Because the French army was like the best in the world.
Didn't the French dominate in the last war? And
well, they dominated in the Napoleonic Empire, obviously with Napoleon and stuff like that. And they've always just been known as having a real good army, and they obviously won the First World War.
Have you seen the Napoleon movie? The one that came out recently?
Wasn't the biggest fan, but that's
anyway.
another thing.
Yeah.
But,
alright.
and they obviously won the First World War, and it was known as being the most technologically advanced,
At the time.
best, well organized. So even for Stalin, no one could wrap their head around that.
How'd this happen? Yeah.
And now Stalin is like
Stressed.
shit.
Because now he'd also think, it might have been a fluke, but in his head he's like, fuck, Germany really.
Because he knows the French army is better than his. Like, his army's bigger, much bigger. It was the biggest army in the world.
With their experience. They
got the best tanks, the best this and the best that, the best communications. You
Germany
fucking
just
name it.
fucked them up.
Germany smokes them like it's fucking nothing, right? And Britain stays in the war, and there's like an aerial kind of battle going on, the Battle of Britain. But really, the German army is only getting stronger. Whereas Stalin believed the opposite would happen. And so Hitler's like, well, while we're on a run, may as well fucking get some shit. So they go down and they start fucking shit up. They take like Yugoslavia and all these places that they invade. They fight 10 days, easy done. They choose, okay, we go in here. They just take it. Like, the army is unstoppable. The whole fucking world thought this army is unstoppable. This is like a next level fucking army, right? And they really were. They even went to Africa, started fucking shit up in North Africa. You fucking name it. Wherever they went, they fucking dominated. So now Stalin's really freaking out, right?
Especially because he's gotten rid of half his military.
So he knows his military is weak and it's not ready, right? So
what's he do? Trying to get mercy? Trying to play good? Like trying to find a way around it?
So
if there's any option at this point.
He's basically now in a position where he just needs to stall it.
Yeah.
He just has to stall it as long as possible. But Germany is doing so well that he knows it's coming a lot sooner than he'd fucking like to think.
Yeah.
But he's desperate for a bit more time. So Germany, so it was always Hitler's ambition to go to the east for living space for his people and for slaves. And Hitler, when they were planning this war, he described it as a war of annihilation. This is not a normal war. This is like almost a religious crusade, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like ideological opponents. And they planned on killing 30 million people. All the people would like, okay, yeah, we obviously spoke about how fucked up Stalin is. Like, you can't even fathom the fact it would get worse, but there's some other fucked up out there who's like almost worse, or probably would have been worse to those people. Properly enslaved them, killed 30 million of them, you name it. Yep, Hitler, that was his plan. So
I mean, fuck, what he did done to the Jews, which he hasn't done yet, has he?
Yeah, well, he has been doing that for a number of years, but it hasn't quite ramped up to the scale that it would.
But at this point...
But a lot of the Jews that he would end up killing are the ones in the Soviet Union.
So his plan is to get rid of the Soviet Union, and anyone who's in it will either die or just be slaves.
Pretty much, yeah, because they're a lesser race. That's his, and wants to give land and room for his superior race, the German race, to procreate and to spread across everywhere. And obviously, Russia, plenty of space. Yeah, plenty of space to get your master race going.
So
Did he know about the purge? Did he know how weak?
yeah,
Russia
yeah,
was?
and Stalin, Hitler was confused by it as well.
Yeah.
Hitler's like,
What the
"Oh
fuck
my
would
God." Hitler's belief was that okay, the Soviet military, it is the biggest in the world. It is relatively technologically advanced.
Why get rid of it? Maybe join it.
No. So the invasion itself is a big undertaking, right?
Mm.
I mean, it's Russia.
Yeah, huge.
It's
Yeah.
huge, right? Biggest
Different
army in the
biome,
world.
like
So a lot of people are like, it's easy to look back and think that it was a stupid idea for Hitler to do it, knowing what was to come. But from his perspective, and honestly, I feel like he kind of had a point. He had this quote: "We need to only kick in the door, and the whole house will come crashing down." Because he thought, and he was right, that people didn't like Stalin. He'd fuck shit up.
You take one, put one from the bottom, and the whole thing.
And
comes down.
that, it was basically what happened with France. That you just need to burst in, and everything just collapses straight away.
It's so fragile.
It's so vulnerable, and it's honestly not an unreasonable thing for him to have thought for the time. So he builds up a monster army.
He knows he's going to lead a lot of
I think it's 3.7 million people invading, right?
That's insane,
The biggest invasion force ever fucking assembled, right? And it's I think it's like over 3,000 tanks, 3,000 planes. Like
Russia fucks them up.
It's nasty business. Oh, not quite.
No, because doesn't it happen like they run out of fuel?
Yes, but that comes later. So we'll have a conversation about the war.
Yeah.
We'll finish at the war. The invasion.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's called Operation Barbarossa. Right, take place on the 22nd of June, 1941. So you would think Stalin might have heard a few rumors about 4 million people just showing up on his fucking doorstep, right?
Yeah.
So how does he not see it, right? Well, the Germans tricked him, right? They rused him. So they put out this fake story that the Soviets would later pick up and then tell Stalin that
they're going somewhere else or whatever.
Well, that we're not actually going to invade, but Hitler is just going to use it as an ultimatum, and Hitler's going to say, look, I've got this army here now. I want parts of Ukraine. I want this. So Stalin didn't actually think a war was coming.
They just thought it was a scare tactic or a means of leverage.
Leverage. And Stalin probably would have been willing to give certain things up because he was desperate for time. Like he needed time to sort himself out. He knew he wasn't ready. So the night before, right? The night before the invasion, the biggest invasion in the history of the world, right? A plane, it's some sort of German plane crashes, and the Soviets find the plans for Operation Barbarossa, right? And Stalin is informed by one of his main generals, Zhukov, about it, and he looks at it and he says, whoever sent me this, tell them to go fuck their mother. Didn't want a bar of it. Didn't believe it for a fucking second, right? He thought it was another trick.
Yeah.
And Zhukov, who this guy's a fucking badass, man. But
the dude who?
So he's like one of the main heads of the military.
Yeah.
And he would go on to be. That's another thing. So Zhukov says to him, obviously you can't tell Stalin, hey, you're wrong.
Can't tell him anything.
You can't.
Yeah.
But he was trying to sort of be like, dude, like, I think some shit's really bad.
I think we got really lucky finding this information, and we should probably act on it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
And Stalin wouldn't have a bar of it, and he fell asleep. And then when he woke up in the morning,
to news of the invasion, he still didn't believe it. Like and not only that, he gave strict orders to his army not to engage. Even if the Germans attacked, do not engage them.
I feel like he was so scared of them actually attacking. Ironically, he's like, we can't retaliate because it's just going to be so much worse, kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
Like he thought they were just power tripping or something. Like or he's just fucking delusional. Like
yeah, well, he was fucking delusional.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we get to the point now where I think we'll finish off. But we'll get into the real juicy stuff.
Yeah.
The war.
That's just the build up.
That's just
getting
it. So
Stalin. Yeah.
I can yap for a while.
Yeah.
Man. So, all right.
Wait for the next episode.
Skukuran Combo Pondy. Thank you, sir.
Kennedy.
No worries.